Hey, Julia Barzyk here from Wise Investigator. As we move into a new year, 2024, I wanted to take a moment to talk about the trends that I see in the research enterprise, especially as related to funding, but kind of broadly, that I believe are going to really be affecting early career PIs this year and beyond. So let me get into those. Importantly, I'm going to give my recommendations for what you should be doing to make the most of the new opportunities that are coming up and to prevent yourself from stumbling as we all adapt to some of these trends. So the first one is it's really time to get serious about the media. Now, I'm thinking about this as kind of like a direct to consumer type movement or phenomena. And I'd like to start out by thinking about some podcasts that are out there. Now, you may have heard of some of these podcasts that I'm going to mention. Maybe some of them you've heard of and some of them you've not. And the important thing to remember about these as I go through and talk about what they are is that these is media that's put out there by our major research organizations, major organizations like, for example, NSF that are supporting extramural research or university performed research, and organizations that support in-house research. So again, these are major organizations, and if they did not feel and believe that it was important to be putting out this type of media at the rate that they're producing it, they wouldn't be doing it. These decisions are not gone into lightly. They're made at a very high level of leadership within these organizations. So the fact that this is becoming so prominent is something that you really should be keeping your eye on and let that sink in so that you understand that this kind of, again, direct to consumer media production is no longer becoming optional. It's something that more and more organizations and more individuals are getting on board with, so don't be left behind here. So let's take a look at, as a review, and this is certainly not comprehensive in terms of all of the science and research, government sponsored podcasts that are out there, but here are some big ones. Most likely, if you've heard of any of them, you may have heard of NSF Discovery Files. This is a weekly podcast. It's featuring usually individuals who are supported by NSF in doing their research. And this came out in 2022. So a commitment to something like this each week is major. And it's something that is going to be kind of like an ongoing demand on the organization. I'm getting a little bit of a tangent here in terms of thinking about where they would get people for these podcasts. So I want you to keep that in your mind as we talk about this. And they're going to, of course, rely on people that they know or that they know of or that someone recommends, oh, this PI would be a good person to be on this podcast. But I'm certain that the folks who are putting these things together at NSF and elsewhere, they want to include more voices. They want to include PIs that they don't know or they don't have a recommendation to. So just think as we go through this video today about how someone would come to know of you so that you could have an opportunity to be on a podcast like this. Now, the next one I was going to mention is DARPA Voices. This one is a bit different because they're highlighting content that's put out by one of the program managers. So a program manager talking about their vision for a program or a technology area. And this is, again, different than the NSF one, which is usually featuring the PIs, the university PIs. Now, they're ahead of the curve. They have been putting this out since 2016, and it's a monthly podcast. The next one I'll mention is called Power of ERDEC. And this is one that's put out by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, ERDEC or ERDC, Engineer Research Development Center. And this has been out there since 2021, so it's come online pretty recently. Another is Department of Energy Direct Current. This one is in its 4th year. And the last one I'll mention is AFRL or Air Force Research Lab. They have a podcast that's called Lab Life, and they also have a LinkedIn newsletter. So now, why are we thinking about media in terms of the podcasts? What that leads in actually to a trend that I want to talk about that I generally aware of this, but I learned about this more when I sat in on 2 webinars put on by an organization called SciLine. So SciLine is, well, it's actually part of the AAAS, or American Association for the Advancement of Science. It's part of that organization. It's a service that they provide, which is a database of experts in science and engineering that they can match up to journalists who want to report on science, engineering, research topics. So they may be, it's sort of like a matchmaking service, right? So there may be something in a local area that's related to science or the environment, like a disaster or any other kind of news story, or there may be some exciting results that come out and they are looking for somebody else, besides the author of that paper to comment on those results. And what they had communicated in the SciLine webinars is that with the struggles that print journalism has experienced over the last many years, this resulted in many specialized reporters, like science reporters, science communication experts, being let go from those newsrooms. So now it's the case that most of the communication that you have with someone who's a journalist is going to be with that journalist at a level that's a little bit more general, because these reporters or journalists that you're interacting with are going to be ones who are assigned to all different types of topics, many different topics that are covered by the media. So you can't assume that that person that you're speaking with has a background in, say, medical research or in climate studies. This is going to be somebody who has expertise broadly, but you're going to need to meet them halfway and be able to explain your research to them at a pretty basic level. And this is why SciLine is out there matching people up. So I recommend that you go to the AAAS website, find where it says SciLine, planned to watch a webinar. They put these on about once every month or two, and you can follow the instructions there to register yourself within the SciLine database so that you could have the opportunity to connect with the media. This is very important for 2024 and beyond. Again, it would be more of a direct-to-consumer approach where you are able to communicate directly with the media. You're able to communicate without going through necessarily your university's public affairs office or news office or whatever it's called. Although those offices are an excellent resource that you should be making the most of, this is just part of that changing landscape, again, demonstrated by the big science and engineering organizations who are making their own podcasts. They have in-house support to put this stuff out there. Now, why would you want to put this stuff out there to advance your career beyond just sharing the important results of your research, generating more public support of science, which is certainly a worthy goal? Well, going back to those podcasts that I mentioned, so when they're looking for people to be on these kinds of podcasts, certainly if you have some content out there, like videos, for example, and the people who are making decisions about who to feature see that, they're going to see that you are willing to be interviewed in that type of setting, be on a video, for example, and you really don't need to worry so much about the production quality or anything like that, because when you hear the production quality of the podcast that I just mentioned, you'll see it's very high and you may feel a little bit intimidated by that, but they have professionals that are putting all of that together. And no one expects for you to be able to do that on your own, just like no one expects that my videos that I make or anything beyond what they are. They do the job, right? And certainly if you're brought into a studio, you would be able to be part of a production that's of a higher quality in terms of audiovisual editing, all that kind of stuff. So the first step is just to put something out there. People will see that. They're not going to judge anything about, again, the production quality. They're going to appreciate that it's there, and that can be the stepping stone to get you featured on some of these podcasts, which would be a wonderful thing for your career. It would be wonderful to share what you do with the world more broadly. So I encourage you to take a listen at the podcasts, not so that you should remember what all the research is. It's wonderful to learn about the stories on there, but listen to how it's produced. Because again, if this was not something that was deemed important by people very, very high up in these organizations, they would not be devoting the significant resources that they are to producing this stuff, even on a weekly basis. That's very demanding. So that's a tight schedule. So actually, moving into tight schedules. This takes me to the second point. We can't expect shorter deadlines and tighter turnarounds in the research funding process going forward. Now, why is this? This, I believe, is largely due to the dysfunction at the federal level with the passing of a budget. Now, it's been consistent that year after year after year now we move into continuing resolution after continuing resolution because the government is not able to agree on a budget for the upcoming fiscal year. And this will frustrate people within the organizations as much as it frustrates you or anybody who's involved in federal programs. And it's something that just has to be worked with because the people who are in the organizations that are obligating these funds are not able to obviously control anything that's going on with Congress any more than you or I are. So what this means is usually that, and I'm speaking very, very generally here, there's many nuances, many different types of programs, many different lines of funding and rules that affect all these different types of money. That's way beyond what I'm going to talk about. But very generally, it will be the case that the money is there eventually, but the money is often coming late. In certain cases, there are programs that actually do have to be reauthorized every year. So this can hold things up even more because the government may not even be able to announce that something is going to be an opportunity ahead of time to give people some kinds of heads up as they may want to, because that program actually needs to be reauthorized. And for ones that maybe don't need to be reauthorized, there's still many, many delays in receiving the funds. And what this means is that when those funds do arrive, the organization maybe has half the amount of time that they should have to execute those funds. So this results in an announcement coming out and then wanting something back in terms of a white paper proposal or that entire process much more quickly than, in my personal opinion, it should be for the sake of the research. Of course, it's generally the case, with the exception of some rapid type awards that could be made to investigate something that's just happened, for example, in the natural world, and you want to go out and collect the data while everything is on the ground there. With the exception of those types of awards, it's generally better, in my, again, personal opinion, to have more time to think about what is the best way that we can administer this program. What is the best way that we can disseminate news on this opportunity, especially if it's a new opportunity, so that people at the institutions can get the communications to their faculty, people can have a chance to digest that and think about applying for the opportunity, have the conversations with potential collaborators they need to have, and really make an informed decision about submitting for that opportunity, and have the time, if they do decide to submit, have the time to put together a quality proposal that doesn't completely derail them in their personal lives or with other commitments they have, because having 4 to 6 weeks to put something together, it's just not enough time. However, that is often what we have been dealing with in more recent years. And this is just the way that things seem to be going. So the important thing here is to think about what we can do about that, because we really can't do anything on the front end there, except talk to your congressperson perhaps. But we really want to be thinking about making things as modular as possible. So we've already seen movements towards this in terms of standardization, even something like a BioSketch, which from NSF, which was already standardized. We're seeing the tools come online to get, and even to be required, right, to get those even more standardized and more standardization in terms of what's expected for something like a departmental letter. And I believe that we will start to see standardization across agencies because there's recognition that making different versions of these products is not, for different organizations, is not the best use of time. And I believe that we will see more standardization. This will help you as a PI in saving time in these tasks, from formatting and reading requirements to tweak things like this and that, when you really could have like one document that you use again across all funders. But in the meantime, I encourage you to think about getting all of those pieces as optimized, as prepared, as findable on your computer, and as up to date as they can be, so that when you come across an opportunity where there's short notice, but it's something that you could take advantage of, then you could focus your time on having the conversations that you need to be having with, again, potential collaborators, including within the government, talking to program managers, getting a hold of them. You've had to allow time for that, and really focusing on your research problem, what you want to do, and that technical plan. That's what you want to be focused your time on when you're up against these short turnarounds, not gathering all of these little pieces. So, yes, one more point about that I wanted to make here is that we can expect these short turnarounds to affect the review process, because when everything is compressed, that means the review process is going to have to be compressed as well. And there's generally been more and more difficulty in getting people to review proposals, sort of something that follows on from the challenge of getting people to review papers. And when I was serving my program manager position, once COVID hit, and during that period, that's when the invitations or requests to perform proposal evaluations started getting declined much more frequently than they had in the past. And that was something that I experienced, and my colleagues communicated that they experienced that too. So people are overloaded. They just can't agree to perform all of these tasks that they're asked to perform. And you would understand why that is. It's just overload. Not just overload, right? I don't want to minimize it, but that's what it is. So what this means is that it's most likely that people who are not very, very, very close technical experts to your research topic are going to be involved in the review process more and more, because it generally takes more time to find people who are higher level experts on any given topic. That's just how it goes. So the less time that you have to find the perfect, like those don't exist, but the most ideal reviewers for a proposal, the more you're going to have to call on people who have the expertise, and they will be qualified to perform the evals, but you're going to have to take who's available. And so for this reason, what you want to do here is think about how you can write your proposals in a way, and it's asking a lot because you're going to have to cover all of the finer details that a technical expert will expect, but at the same time, you're going to have to do the framing of the research question and make sure that you outline at a higher level your research plan in a way that someone with a little bit less expertise in that area can also understand. So the final trend that I'm going to mention here is one that's been affecting people, professionals, in many domains for some time. And I think that folks in the research community will be well served to consider how this is going to be affecting you, affecting me, etc., affecting all of us. And that's the trend of trust going down in institutions and going up in individuals. So very briefly, again, this is a broad trend, but we can think about what we've seen really even in recent months, or maybe the Twitter thing has been going on, I think, for most of 2023. But something like Twitter, now X, which was a platform where many academics were conversing, getting information out about their research, and they're still on there. But the use of Twitter or X by academics has gone down. This was a platform or an institution that was very trusted for a long period of time, and now it's embroiled in controversy. Where the academics have gone, they've gone to different places. They have not all gone to one other platform. And certainly people are making decisions about either remaining on Twitter, which is going to be some subgroup of people. Then there's going to be ones that go, again, to those other platforms, and we know what they are. But this will be more of like an individual decision. So it's something where the idea that you have one place or like one public square where everyone goes, in this case a social media platform, as an institution that's trusted, that's eroding. Similarly, some of our most prestigious universities are embroiled in controversy right now. And there's data out there that I've only seen the headlines. I don't have any firsthand knowledge of it, but applications for undergrads are down, or they're not accepting their acceptances at certain very prestigious schools that in the past there would have been no question about someone wanting to go there, right? So these things are trends that can affect the individual researcher as well, because you really want to be thinking about yourself as more of an entrepreneur or more of a stand-alone individual, where you're able to communicate, what you're about, what the messages are that you want to get out, what people want what you want your reputation to be, and to take control of that so that you are not at the mercy of your institution, to represent you, or for people to have an opinion about you due to your association with whatever institution, be whatever platform you're on or whoever your employer is. So think about how you are able to use media, and this is going back to my point number 1 of the direct to consumer. We see that trend of the large government organizations putting media out directly. We see the emergence of something like the SciLine that I mentioned, where that organization, again, AAA, has their finger on the pulse of what's going on in the research community. That's, I'm sure in part, why they created a service to match up, to do this matchmaking between the reporters and the individual PIs. And we can see that it will really be to your benefit to think about yourself as an individual, whatever organization you're at, and take control of your presence online, take control of the message that you're sending out, and not rely on an institution or a particular platform to do that for you. So I'm really excited to get into the year of 2024. Please do leave comments below. Let me know what you think about these trends, and if you have any others you think I've missed. And I look forward to seeing you next time.